The air in the lawyer's conference room was thick enough to choke on. Not with smoke. The building had a strict no-smoking policy. But with unspoken accusations, simmering resentment, and the suffocating weight of a marriage ending. Across the polished table sat Michael, my soon-to-be ex-husband, and next to him, holding his hand possessively, sat Tiffany. The woman he'd left me for. Her eyes, usually a bright mocking blue, held a glint of triumph poorly concealed. Michael looked relieved, like he was finally shedding a heavy coat he'd been forced to wear. We were here for what Michael's lawyer had called a final mediation session, an attempt to sort out the remaining pieces of our life together, the house, the cars, the dwindling joint accounts, without dragging everything through a messy court battle. An attempt that was clearly failing. We'd been married for 5 years. 5 years that now felt like a bad dream I was slowly waking up from, covered in sweat and tears. Michael and I had built a life, a comfortable one or so, I thought. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our shared history. I loved him deeply, completely. Or the man I thought he was anyway. Then, 6 months ago, the carefully constructed world I lived in imploded. Michael had been acting distant, detached. Late nights at work became the norm. Weekend trips alone for business conferences. I suspected something was wrong, but I never imagined her, Tiffany. She worked in a different department at his company. Younger, flashier, everything I wasn't. Michael didn't even have the decency to tell me face to face. He sent me an email. An email after 5 years of marriage. Said he was moving out, that he needed space, that he was unhappy. The truth about Tiffany came out later through hushed whispers from mutual friends, through seeing them together, bold and unapologetic. He didn't just leave, he abandoned me for her. Packed his bags and walked into a ready-made new life, leaving me alone in the house we had built with a broken heart and a million questions. The past 6 months had been a blur of pain, confusion, and humiliation. Dealing with the divorce lawyers, the financial mess, the pitying looks from people who knew, and seeing Michael and Tiffany together, seemingly happy, building their life while mine lay in ruins. Tiffany sometimes posted subtle jabs on social media, photos of them in places Michael and I had planned to go, captions about finding true happiness. It was cruel. And Michael let her do it. He'd become cold, dismissive. When we did talk, it was brief, tense, focused only on the logistics of splitting assets. He treated me like an obstacle, a problem to be solved. Now here we were. Michael's lawyer droned on about percentages and portfolios. I just wanted it to be over. But then Michael spoke, cutting his lawyer off. He looked directly at me, his eyes cold, devoid of any warmth or regret, only impatience, and a strange sense of superiority. He had the woman he wanted, the life he wanted. He had won. "Look, Clara," he said, his voice flat, final. "This is going nowhere. It's over. You need to sign the papers. You need to move on. Tiffany and I, we're building a new life. A real life." He stressed the word real, making it sound like the 5 years we spent together were somehow fake, a rehearsal. He leaned closer, his voice dropping slightly but still audible in the tense room. "Face it, Clara, you just weren't enough. You were holding me back." Tiffany squeezed his hand tighter, a smug little smile playing on her lips. My breath hitched. The words hit me like physical blows. Not enough. Holding him back. After everything. After I supported him through job changes, through tough times, through building his career, he was casting our entire history aside, reducing me to a footnote, a mistake in his narrative of finding true happiness. The pain of the past months, the betrayal, the humiliation, the loneliness, the sleepless nights, it all surged within me. But instead of tears, instead of pleading, instead of showing the vulnerability they expected, a cold, quiet fury settled over me. I had endured enough. I had been shamed enough. I had grieved enough for the man who was gone and the life that was lost. I looked straight into Michael's eyes, then at Tiffany's smirking face. My hands, which had been trembling under the table moments before, were steady now. I reached into my large handbag, not fumbling, but deliberately pulling out a thick envelope. A standard business envelope, nondescript. I placed it on the table, sliding it slowly, deliberately, until it rested precisely between me and Michael right in front of him. My lawyer sitting beside me looked at me surprised. Michael and Tiffany exchanged a confused glance. "Oh, I'm moving on, Michael," I said, my voice low, steady, and surprisingly strong, completely different from the pained, vulnerable voice they were used to hearing from me. The smugness on Michael's face flickered, replaced by confusion. And I'm facing it. Believe me, I'm facing everything. I gestured to the envelope on the table. "But before you ride off into your real life with Tiffany, into your sunset of true happiness, there's something you need to face. Something you didn't know about. Something I've been waiting for the results of." I opened the envelope myself, just a little, pulling out a single sheet of paper folded neatly. I didn't hand it to him. I just looked at him, my eyes locking onto his, filled with a mix of past pain and present resolve. "This," I said, my voice clear and sharp, the quiet sound carrying immense weight in the silent room. "This is a DNA test." Michael's face went pale. The smug smile completely vanished. Tiffany looked from the envelope to Michael, her confusion replaced by sudden, sharp anxiety. A DNA test. What the hell was I talking about? What did a DNA test have to do with him leaving me for her? They didn't understand. They didn't know. They didn't know the secret I had been carrying, the immense burden I had been bearing alone throughout these brutal months of abandonment and public humiliation. They thought I was just the sad left-behind wife. They thought they had won. They had no idea that this single piece of paper, was about to detonate, shattering their shiny new world into a million pieces. And that was when the real story began. The silence in the room after I said DNA test was deafening. Michael stared at the envelope, then at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. Tiffany looked from him to me, her perfectly made-up face etched with suspicion and fear. A DNA test! Michael finally sputtered, his voice incredulous. "What the hell are you talking about, Clara? Are you crazy? Who needed a DNA test? You did, Michael," I said, my voice less calm, though you didn't know it. "What is this? Is this some kind of joke?" Tiffany demanded, her voice high and tight. "No joke," I said, looking straight at her, then back at Michael. "This is the truth." Michael's lawyer cleared his throat awkwardly. "Ms. Miller, perhaps we can discuss this outside of the mediation? It seems unrelated to the dissolution of assets." "Oh, it's absolutely related," I said, my gaze never leaving Michael's face. "It's related to the life Michael left behind, the life he chose to walk away from." Michael and I had been together for 7 years, married for 5. Our life hadn't been extraordinary, but it was ours. We met through mutual friends. We clicked. Shared values, similar senses of humor, dreams of a comfortable future. Maybe a house in the suburbs, a couple of kids' stable careers. I worked as a graphic designer freelance mostly, which gave me flexibility. Michael was in sales, doing well, always pushing for the next level. Looking back now, I see the cracks I ignored. Michael became more focused on work, on climbing the ladder, on appearances. Less present, more critical. My freelance career, which I loved, felt like it wasn't enough for him anymore. My quiet nature, my preference for a cozy night and over a flashy party, felt like it was holding him back from the next level he craved. He wanted more excitement, more status, more sparkle. Tiffany had sparkle. The affair wasn't a surprise, not really once I found out. The distance between us had become a chasm. The surprise was his coldness, his ruthlessness in ending things. The email, moving his things out while I was visiting my sister for the weekend, a text message confirming he wouldn't be coming back, then seeing him a week later with Tiffany, laughing, looking annoyingly happy. It was a public display of his new life that felt designed to twist the knife. The 6 months that followed were a blur of tears, anger, and profound grief. Grief for the man I thought I knew, grief for the future I thought we had. Dealing with the lawyers, the financial entanglement of separating our lives, the awkwardness with friends. Tiffany's social media presence was like a constant cruel reminder of what I had lost, what I had been replaced by. Friends tried to help, but no one could truly understand the depth of feeling like your entire shared history was being erased, like you were being deemed not enough by the one person whose opinion mattered most. But there was something else. Something that happened before Michael left. Something that changed everything, even as my world was falling apart. The week before Michael sent that email, the week he was supposedly on a business trip, but was likely with Tiffany, I found out I was pregnant. We hadn't been actively trying, but we hadn't been preventing it either. A quiet understanding that if it happened, it happened. A shared unspoken dream of maybe starting a family someday. Finding out amidst the growing distance from Michael was terrifying. I didn't get to experience the joy of seeing 2 pink lines and running to tell my husband, sharing the excitement, planning a future together. Instead, I sat on the bathroom floor staring at the positive test, the world tilting on its axis, filled with a mix of disbelief, fear, and a profound, agonizing loneliness. And then the email came. He was gone, just like that. My husband left me for his lover. My first instinct after the shock and heartbreak was about the baby. What did this mean? How could I do this alone? The fear was overwhelming. My next instinct, born from the pain of his abandonment and the glimpse I'd already gotten of his coldness, was to keep it a secret from Michael. Why part of it was fear? Fear of his reaction. Would he deny it? Would he see it as a trap? Would he try to force me to make a choice I couldn't live with? Part of it was pride. I didn't want him to stay with me out of obligation, burdening his shiny new life. Part of it was pain. I was so hurt, so angry, that I didn't want to share something so precious, so vulnerable with the man who had just discarded me. I wanted to figure things out myself first, to find my footing before unleashing this truth on him. The immense emotional burden of carrying the secret was crushing. Dealing with the physical toll of early pregnancy, the nausea, the exhaustion, while simultaneously navigating divorce lawyers and the emotional wreckage of my marriage. Hiding my changing body from friends, from family, only my sister Sarah knew the full truth initially, and she was my rock. Financial worries about raising a child alone on a freelance income when the future was so uncertain and our joint assets were in dispute. Every pregnancy symptom, every doctor's appointment I went to alone was a painful, visceral reminder of the life Michael had walked away from, the life he didn't know he had created. The baby was born 4 months ago, a beautiful, healthy baby girl. I named her Lily. Holding her for the first time, feeling her tiny weight in my arms, was a moment of pure love amidst the chaos. She was mine, ours, his, the product of a love that had ended in the most painful way. The decision to reveal the secret, and to do it now at this mediation session, wasn't made lightly. These past few months, seeing Michael and Tiffany together, seeing his dismissal of our past, hearing him say I wasn't enough, feeling the sting of their apparent happiness while I was struggling to raise his child alone, it hardened my resolve. He needed to face the consequences of his actions in the most undeniable way possible. He didn't get to just walk away from our life. He had to face the life he had created and abandoned. I didn't doubt for a second that Michael was the father. We had been together intimately right up until he left, but I knew his type. I knew he would deny it. He would accuse me of lying, of trying to trap him, of sleeping with someone else after he left. I needed proof. Undeniable scientific proof. Not just my word against his. That's why I got the DNA test done. It was a quiet, private process, just me and Lily, sending the samples, waiting for the results. It was filled with anxiety, not about the outcome, but about the moment I would drop this bomb into Michael's new, carefully constructed life. Lily's birth wasn't straightforward. She was born prematurely, just a few weeks early, but early enough to require a short stay in the neonatal intensive care unit NICU. It was terrifying. Seeing her so tiny, hooked up to wires and tubes, visiting her alone in the hospital, talking to nurses and doctors by myself, explaining to my sister Sarah on the phone why I wasn't home yet. trying to sound stronger than I felt. The emotional strain was immense, and the medical bills, even with insurance, were significant. This added an immense layer of stress, worry, and financial burden on me during my secret pregnancy and Lily's first fragile weeks. While Michael was celebrating holidays and weekends away with Tiffany building their real life, I was facing doctors, NICU nurses, and the terrifying vulnerability of a premature baby all alone. This wasn't just about a secret baby. It was about the immense solitary struggle I had endured due to the timing of his abandonment. This twist highlighted the scale of the burden I carried silently, the reality of the life he had so casually walked away from. Every sleepless night feeding Lily, every trip to the pediatrician, every bill that arrived in the mail. It was a reminder of the life he'd chosen to abandon. And seeing him sit here so happy, so dismissive, talking about me not being enough, I knew I couldn't keep silent anymore. Not just for me, but for Lily, his child. He needed to know. He needed to face what he'd done. My heart was a battlefield, pain from his betrayal and words, fear of being a single mother raising Lily alone, physical exhaustion from sleepless nights and the lingering effects of a difficult pregnancy and birth, financial worry despite my freelance work about providing everything Lily needed, and anger. Burning righteous anger at Michael and Tiffany living their carefree life while I wrestled with the messy, difficult reality of the one Michael left behind. Seeing him sitting there so confident, so eager to cut ties and erase me from his history, while I carried the weight of his child, the child born under such difficult circumstances, it ignited something fierce within me. They thought they had won. They thought they had written me out of the story, a sad footnote in their triumphant new chapter. They didn't know I had brought a whole new character into the narrative, a character he couldn't ignore. His character. The decision to reveal the DNA test at this moment during this mediation wasn't just about legal leverage. It was about emotional survival. It was about reclaiming my power, my dignity, after months of feeling powerless and humiliated. It was about forcing him to see the true, undeniable consequence of his actions. The DNA test wasn't just proof of paternity, it was proof of his responsibility. Proof that his attempt to simply walk away and start over was impossible proof that he was irrevocably tied to the life he had abandoned. I was terrified, standing on the precipice of shattering his world and unleashing a new level of chaos into my own. But beneath the fear was a steel-hard resolve. I wouldn't let him get away with it. Not just for me, but for Lily. She deserved to have her father know she existed. She deserved his support, both financially and someday maybe emotionally, though that felt impossible right now. He needed to know the life he discarded wasn't just mine. It was hers, too. Michael's face frozen in shock after I said, DNA test, slowly shifted. Disbelief, then suspicion. What kind of DNA test, Clara? What are you playing at? He demanded, his voice regaining some of its harshness, trying to regain control. Are you trying to say? He couldn't even voice the thought. I'm saying, I stated calmly, my voice unwavering, that about 9 months after you left, a baby was born. A baby girl. And this test confirms that you are her biological father, Michael. Silence again, heavy, suffocating. Tiffany gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. Michael stared at the envelope, then at me, his eyes darting, searching for a lie, for a trick. That's impossible, he stammered. You didn't say anything. You left, Michael, I stated simply. You left by email, you avoided my calls, you were building your new life. When would I have told you? In a text message between mediation sessions? The quiet accusation hung in the air. He tried to deny the timeline to imply the baby wasn't his. But you, after I left, I don't know who you were with. Stop, I said, my voice sharp. I slid the result sheet out of the envelope and placed it face up on the table for him to see. Big, bold letters at the top, paternity test result. Below, names and percentages culminating in the undeniable conclusion. Conclusion: Michael Robert Carter cannot be excluded as the biological father. The probability of paternity is 99.99%. His eyes scanned the document, his face getting paler and paler. Tiffany leaned in, looking at the paper, her own face contorting with shock and a sudden raw anger directed at Michael. "You..." Tiffany whispered, her voice trembling. "You knew. Before?" The implication hung heavy. That he knew I was pregnant, or might be when he left. Michael didn't answer her. He was staring at the paper, his world collapsing. "She was born 4 months ago," I said, stating the fact, bringing in the reality of the baby's existence. "A little girl." "Lily? She's your daughter, Michael." I pulled out a small photo from my wallet. A recent picture of Lily smiling, her eyes undeniably resembling Michael's. I placed it on the table beside the DNA test result. Michael looked at the photo, his face crumbling. The baby's face, his face staring back at him. The undeniable reality of the life he had created and abandoned. Tiffany stood up abruptly, pushing her chair back. "You knew," she shrieked at Michael, ignoring me completely. "You left your wife who was pregnant?" She looked at him with utter disgust. His lie to her, the clean break he'd pretended to make, was exposed. Her triumph turned into furious betrayal. "I can't believe this. I can't..." She grabbed her bag and stormed out of the room, leaving a stunned silence in her wake, punctuated only by her retreating footsteps and the faint closing of a door. Michael didn't even seem to notice she was gone. He was still staring at the photo of Lily at the DNA test result. His face was a mask of shock, fear, and dawning realization of the monumental consequences of his actions. His lawyer was talking to him in a low voice, probably explaining the legal ramifications. But Michael seemed lost miles away. I had one more thing to add. It wasn't about blame anymore. It was about reality, the reality of the child he had abandoned. "There's something else, Michael," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "The pregnancy was difficult. Lily was born prematurely." I paused, not just as my burden, but as a shared reality. And the DNA test, it checked for some basic genetic markers too, for potential predispositions. I looked at the report again, pointing to a specific section, something that might look like medical jargon to an untrained eye, but had been explained to me by the lab and my lawyer. The test indicates that Lily carries a genetic marker for a specific, mention a type of condition plausibly linked to genetics, e.g., a blood disorder, a metabolic issue, a predisposition for a certain childhood illness. It's something we need to monitor. It might require ongoing medical care, special treatments. I looked him in the eye. "It's a marker that runs in your family, Michael. Your father carried it. Your grandfather did. It's in your genetics. This isn't just about money anymore. This isn't just about legal responsibility." I watched as the information sank in. The test didn't just confirm paternity. It linked him biologically and genetically to a potential health challenge for his child. It wasn't just a child support payment. It was his family history manifesting in the life of the baby he abandoned. The problem wasn't just the money. It was his DNA, his legacy, his potential future responsibility for a medical condition that might affect his daughter throughout her life, a condition passed down through his line. "This child," I said, my voice unwavering, looking from the test to the photo of Lily. "She is yours, from your genetics. She is a part of your family history. And she has needs. Needs that I faced alone for the past 4 months. Arthur's carefully constructed wall of denial and self-pity finally crumbled. His face contorted. And this time, the tears were real. Not the performative tears of regret from that morning after the party in the previous story, but tears of shock, of despair, of facing the monumental, undeniable reality of the consequences of his actions. A child he abandoned, a child with potential health issues linked to him, a future forever tied to the woman he discarded. Michael sat there weeping, utterly defeated. Tiffany was gone. His lawyer looked uncomfortable but professional. no longer attempting to argue the main point. The DNA test and the mention of the genetic marker tied to his family history had stripped him bare. He was no longer the confident executive building a real life. He was just a man caught in his lies and cowardice, facing the undeniable biological and legal reality of fatherhood for a child he never acknowledged. I didn't feel triumph yet, only a cold sense of justice and immense exhaustion. I had held this secret, carried this burden, faced the pregnancy, and birth alone dealt with his cruelty and Tiffany's smugness, all while protecting this fragile new life. Now the burden was finally legally and morally shifting back to where it belonged. I'm not here to beg for you to be a father. I said, my voice calm but firm, regaining control of the situation completely. You made your choice when you left, but you don't get to abandon your responsibilities. I laid out the terms, the consequences not as requests, but as statements of what would happen. I will be filing for child support immediately. Based on your income, it will be significant. You will provide health insurance for Lily. We will establish legal paternity through the court, confirming what this test already shows. I addressed the issue of custody, stating my position, clearly defining the future on my terms. Given your abandonment of her for the first 4 months of her life, and the circumstances surrounding your departure, I will be seeking full legal and physical custody of Lily. Visitation will be determined by the court and will be dependent on you demonstrating stability and commitment, something you have yet to do. I looked at the photo of Lily again, then back at Michael. This isn't just a financial obligation, Michael. This is your daughter. She has needs. Medical needs that might arise because of your genetics. She needs stability. She needs security. Needs that I provided alone while you were off with Tiffany. Michael's power was gone. His narrative of leaving me for a happier, better life was annihilated by the undeniable reality of his secret child, his cruel abandonment of her, and the potential health complications tied to his own genetic line. He was no longer the one in control making decisions about his future. He was the one facing massive consequences, legal, financial, and a profound personal reckoning. Clara, the abandoned wife, was now the strong mother who had held a devastating secret and used the truth, scientific truth, to regain her power and force him to face the reality of his responsibilities. Tiffany was gone, her part in this drama ending abruptly as soon as Michael's lies were revealed. I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. The secret was out. The burden of hiding it was gone. The initial excruciating pain of his betrayal was still there. But it was now mixed with the strength of having fought back, of having uncovered the truth, and of having used that truth to regain my power and force him to face what he had done. I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't shamed by his narrative. I had stood up for myself and my child using undeniable fact as my weapon. I had reclaimed my dignity not through his validation, but through my own strength. Watching his carefully constructed world crumble wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. Justice for my mother's struggle for my own, and most importantly, for the innocent life he had abandoned. The mediation session ended abruptly after that. Michael, on the advice of his lawyer, didn't contest the DNA test results. His lawyer requested time to discuss the terms of child support and custody. The legal process moved forward. It wasn't easy, nothing involving divorce and children is. But with the DNA test and evidence of his abandonment, the legal outcome regarding paternity and financial support was certain. Michael was legally established as Lily's father and ordered to pay significant child support. Custody was a longer negotiation, but given his initial abandonment and my consistent care, I was granted primary custody with a schedule for supervised visitation to be phased in only if Michael demonstrated consistent effort and stability, a high bar to clear. His life with Tiffany was predictably over. She wanted his success, not his baggage, especially not a hidden child and the mess that came with it. His reputation among those who knew the truth was undoubtedly damaged. My life is now centered around raising Lily. It wasn't the path I expected, becoming a single mother through abandonment and betrayal. But Lily is my light. She is a joyful, beautiful little girl, unaware of the storm surrounding her birth. The child support combined with my own thriving freelance career, which I could now focus on with slightly less financial anxiety, provides a stable life for us. The emotional scars from Michael's betrayal run deep. The pain of knowing the man I loved lived a secret life and then abandoned his child and wife is a permanent part of my history. But I didn't let it define me. I didn't let it break me. I used the experience to find strength, resilience, and a fierce protectiveness I never knew I had. I built a new life from the wreckage he left behind, a life that is honest, independent, and centered on the love for my daughter. Lily, the undeniable proof of his betrayal, became the unexpected catalyst for my own empowerment and a future I am building one day at a time. The fight for justice, for recognition, was difficult and painful, but ultimately, I won. I stood up for myself and for my child, and I forced the truth into the light. Looking back, the journey from heartbroken wife to confident single mother who brought a billionaire to tears with a piece of paper was long and arduous, but necessary. Considering Michael's initial cruelty, his hidden life, and his abandonment of his own child, contrasted with his eventual breakdown and forced legal responsibility. If you were in my position, having gone through that trauma and successfully secured child support and custody, and years later, Michael consistently met his financial obligations but showed little real interest in being a father or struggled to be a good one due to his own issues, would you feel a sense of complete closure and victory? Or would the initial abandonment and betrayal, the lack of genuine emotional fatherhood, always leave a lingering sense that the justice wasn't entirely complete even with the financial support? A. Feel a sense of complete closure and victory. I secured the child's future and my independence, forcing him to face consequences. B. Feel a mix of satisfaction and a lingering sense that financial support alone cannot fully compensate for abandoning a child and destroying a marriage through deceit. What do you think